So a lot of my videos recently have focused around how government agencies are changing rules and slowly kind of eating away at our rights as private property owners, as hunters, etc. And this is a trend that I feel is concerning. I mean, using federal agencies and their rulemaking in order to push forward with somebody's agenda is, in my opinion, it's a violation against our rights as U.S. citizens. But something that's more concerning, something that is so blatant and such an abuse of power, is something that we saw the end of last week with the governor of New Mexico. And whether you are a gun rights person or not, what she did was such an abuse of power, and it was blatant. It was absolutely blatant. So what she did was she banned guns in Albuquerque, New Mexico, because of a crime spree. As we know, we've seen crime sprees across certain cities throughout the United States. They're not getting any better, that's for sure. A lot of that has to do with the fact that our DAs are more interested in political prosecutions than they are on prosecuting crime. And so a lot of these individuals have gotten away with all sorts of things. But the point is that crime has gotten out of control. Now, the New Mexico governor knows that the crimes are being committed by people who are breaking the law.
Yes, all the examples you cited are crimes. Kids shooting at other kids, shooting from cars. So what's the value of the civil order? Why not just do better law enforcement?
The value of the order is that it says it's a statewide issue and it's a message to everyone to start leveraging their resources and arresting people. To your point, this order basically says stop stalling out, and to your point, just arrest everyone. Well,
if someone's got a concealed carry permit in Albuquerque walking down a public street, they're not going to get arrested.
I can make the point that maybe they should be.
Clearly, somebody who breaks the law is a criminal, right? Anyway, so she enacts this ban on legal citizens who are following the law.
And I realize it's a pinch and then some on responsible gun owners. I'm clear. It is. It's a sacrifice that allows everyone else to get their arms around a growing, significant problem.
She's well aware that those who are already breaking the law, knowing that it's a crime to break the law, aren't going to follow this mandate anyway.
Madam Governor,
Yep.
Do you really think that criminals are going to hear this message and not carry a gun in Albuquerque on the streets for 30 days?
No. But here's what I do think. It's a pretty resounding message.
She makes it extremely clear that she's well aware that this mandate will not actually stop a criminal from carrying a gun. But she passed the mandate anyway. Why?
I don't believe anyone here thinks that, that's gonna stand, or that's the best or the number one idea. But I'm doing it because I think that debate and getting into the session about what does need to work is appropriate. It's a pretty resounding message.
The only message that I got out of this situation was that she needs to be immediately removed from office. You cannot pass a mandate knowing that that mandate will not have the intended impact for which you are passing it.
Madam Governor,
Yep.
Do you really think that criminals are going to hear this message and not carry a gun in Albuquerque on the streets for 30 days?
No.
Even if it is an emergency or a health crisis, as she called it.
You took an oath to the Constitution. Isn't it unconstitutional to say you cannot exercise your carry license?
With one exception, and that is if there's an emergency, and I've declared an emergency for a temporary amount of time, I can invoke additional powers. No constitutional right, in my view, including my oath, is intended to be absolute. There are restrictions on free speech. There are restrictions on my freedoms.
This is a direct abuse of power.
I can do all the public health orders and all the emergency orders I want.
And it's unlike anything we've ever seen. It's very blatant. It's very in your face.
I'm sure I'll get restrictions that make it clear what I can and cannot do, and we keep fighting.
She feels, as a governor of a state, that the Constitution does not apply to her, that she can override the Constitution whenever she pleases.
If there's an emergency, and I've declared an emergency for a temporary amount of time, I can invoke additional powers. The state police aren't bound by those same issues and are required to enforce any of the public orders or emergency orders that I have the power to execute.
As a constitutional republic, which is a form of democracy, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. For somebody to violate that Constitution, for somebody to do so intentionally, knowing that their mandate won't even have the impact as intended.
Madam Governor,
Yep.
do you really think that criminals are going to hear this message and not carry a gun in Albuquerque on the streets for 30 days?
No. And I'll tell you, if you're a young person, you're not allowed to have a handgun.
Well, it's a crime already.
I got it.
She should be removed from office. That is an abuse of power.
I'm willing to do anything and everything within a shred of evidence-based effort.
And it's something that we have seen time and time again. If you remember during the lockdowns and the mask mandates, there were a lot of states and local municipalities that were constantly treading on our constitutional rights. Now, this didn't happen at the federal level as much as it did at the states and local municipality level, or within federal agencies within their rulemaking, like the FAA. And the reason for that is because they can get away with it. They can get away with it long enough for it to have its intended impact. In this case, her intended impact is to send a message that she wants to take people's guns away.
I will ask for another ban on assault weapons.
A message that she wants, that she has the authority to put an end to your civil rights.
If there's an emergency, and I've declared an emergency for a temporary amount of time, I can invoke additional powers. I can do all the public health orders and all the emergency orders I want.
And I feel like this is another test to see how blatantly obvious they can be. She said, no, this isn't going to stop the criminals. No, this isn't doing anything. It's just me sending a message. It's just me sending a message. I can take away your liberties just to send a message, a personal message that I want to send to whom? I don't know. To criminals? You're going to tell every single criminal that now your citizens are unarmed? I think as we move forward over the next year or so, especially as we get into the 2024 elections and we start seeing a return to situations from the past, we'll put it that way. This is going to be a constant thing that we see. And the scary thing is that it's already gotten as blatant as what we've just seen. As blatant and I mean, like I said, when they pass a mandate taking away your rights, and they know, and they even say that it is not going to have the intended impacts of passing that mandate, it's a test. It'll be interesting to see the fallout of this, the fallout for that governor. The way that we make sure that they don't pass the test is by getting her out of office. It doesn't have to be nasty protests and things like that. It could be a simple, we're not going to re-elect you. What happened there was a complete overreach of power. And what I see when I listen to that lady is somebody who is knowingly abusing their power for their own agendas and feelings. And that's not okay.
And I want to end with this. I can do all the public health orders and all the emergency orders I want.